My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, today we have entered the 30th Sunday of the year. For today's reflection, once again we are given a passage from the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. The heading given here is The Blind Bartimaeus. The story is here. Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem and he has reached Jericho. Because we hear from verse 22, they were on the way going up to Jerusalem and Jesus went ahead of them and they have reached up to Jericho. And as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples, and a seizable crowd. A Bartimaeus, a blind man, the son of man, sat by the roadside begging. That we see a blind man named. Usually we hear persons unnamed. A widow came, a Pharisee came, a scribe came, like that only. But here the beggar is mentioned. But this beggar, on hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth who was on his way, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me. Hearing this cry of the beggar, the people tried to say to him, tried to make him silent. They rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he kept calling out all the more, saying, Son of David, have pity on me. And hearing this, Jesus stopped walking or going further and saying to him, call him. So they called the blind man, saying to him, take courage, get up, he is calling you. He threw aside his cloak, sprang up and came to Jesus. And there is a lot of things taking place there. Jesus said to him, in reply, what do you want me to do for you? The blind man replied to him exactly what he wanted, saying to Jesus, Master, I want to see again. Jesus told him, go your way. Your faith has saved you. Immediately he received the sight and followed him on the way. This is the story placed before us to meditate upon, to think upon, to put into action. Come, my dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ. What is the lesson taught here for each one of us, for you and for me? What I have to take home? I have left my everything, today's my activities, and I come to the church. I have a purpose. I come to pray. I come to get energized. I come to become closer to God. And therefore, this incident, how is it going to make me closer to God? How is it going to make me grow in my faith? Seeing the faith of this blind man. Come, let us meditate upon. My dear brothers and sisters, here we see that a blind man living on the peripheral level, that is on the roadside. He is physically blind and his job is the least menial job, that is begging and living side of the road. That means that is meant for the people who do not have much recognition by the society. We can call them, they are, as he is rightly called, a beggar, or he can be called a downtrodden, he can be called rejected by the society, he can be called who cannot have an Aadhaar card or an identity card. Such a person is approaching. His approach is very challenging because as soon as he heard that Jesus is on the way, he knew that he can overcome that hurdle in his life, overcome the shortcoming in his life through that person who is passing on the road. There are times many politicians, when they are on their way, immediately they will stop in a place because a child might have cried out or someone might have shown some signal or someone might have cried out for some help. Therefore, immediately, in order to win that person's favor or the public's favor, they go out of their way to help them out. There is always an ulterior motive, an inner intention to help them. But here, Jesus has no ulterior motive. But the person who has approached Jesus has a motive that he sees there are various hurdles, because as soon as he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me, many rebuked him. They did not encourage him. They did not try to bring him to Jesus. They did not see that Jesus can remove the blindness that is physically in him. They have become blind to see the reality of Jesus and telling him to be silent, to keep quiet. But he cried out more loudly, saying, Son of David, have pity on me. He is crossing all the hurdles on his way to achieve his target, to regain his sight. And therefore, Jesus is telling to the crowd who rebuked him, who ordered him to be silent. Now, Jesus is ordering them. Jesus is removing their rebuke. Jesus is telling them he should not be silenced. He has to be listened. He has a problem. That problem has to be solved. And therefore, Jesus told them, call him. Now, the same crowd who rebuked him, telling to him, take courage, get up, he is calling you. They are telling, take courage. Now, though we have rebuked you, though we have silenced you, there is a person who cannot silence me. There is a person who cannot rebuke me. There is a person who understands the inner motive of me, the inner thirst of me, the inner request of me. And therefore, Jesus is telling him, come. He threw aside his cloak, which he depended for his safety. That safety, he no longer requires it. He throws off, and he got up and he sprang up and came to Jesus, jumping up. He knows, though I am blind, though I jump up, I might fall on somebody. I can fall on the pit where he is baking. Nearby there may be a pit. He can jump on the wrong direction. But he is not worried about. But he knows Jesus is there. This person can change my life. And therefore, Jesus puts him directly a question. What do you want me to do for you? He knows his motive, that he wants something from Jesus. So Jesus, without a minute, asking him, what do you want that I should do for you? And that person also immediately replies, Master, I want to see again. He knows that this person who was having an order before, order of seeing properly, he has lost it and he is now in disorder. And therefore, he wants Jesus to reorder himself, re-resurrecting himself, to put him in the right direction. And therefore, tells to Jesus, who can bring the change in his life, who can bring the right order in his life, who can give what is his motive, that only can be granted by Jesus. He knows everything, and therefore he does not waste his time and places his request before Jesus. And Jesus, going through Jesus in a flash of second, holds his track of belief and tells to him, go your way, and your faith has saved you. Because Jesus has scanned his faith. Jesus has captured his faith. And Jesus understood the strong faith he had in him. And therefore Jesus is telling him, go your way. Your faith has saved you. Jesus is not telling, my capacity to regain your blindness is saving you. No. Jesus is understanding that person who lived on the peripheral level, and therefore telling him, considering his faith, telling him, your faith has saved you. Not because I am the Lord and Master, but because you had the faith, and the faith has saved you. And immediately he received his sight. He regained his sight. He has reordered. He resurrected his blindness. And what he does? He followed him on the way. On the way means on the way to Jerusalem. Where does Jesus go? He is going to Jerusalem. What purpose Jesus go? He goes there to suffer, to face his passion, death, and resurrection. And therefore, he follows him on the way. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, we can learn many things from this blind man, Bartimaeus. We can learn that we can pass through any hurdles, any speed breakers, any problems on the way that come on our life. And on our way, whatever things come, we can cross them and go by having faith. People can stop us. People can rebuke us. People can say to us to be silent. But we cannot be silenced. We cannot be easily rebuked. Christians cannot be easily silenced. Christians cannot be easily rebuked. Christians cannot be put many hurdles before them, thinking that they will stop all their activities. No, they cannot be done, because they follow the Lord of the universe, the Master of the world. And He places one order, all will be silenced, and they will be able to tell to each Christian, take courage, get up. Jesus is calling you. Jesus is calling even who rebuked you. Jesus is calling he who silenced you. Jesus is calling even the people who placed hurdles before the blind man. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, let us learn from this Bartimaeus, who considered Jesus as the son of David, who considered Jesus as a spiritual person, and therefore he requested him to have pity on him, and Jesus had pity on him and granted his heart's desire. And he immediately followed Jesus on the way to passion, death, and resurrection. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, let us be like Bartimaeus, having faith in Jesus, to follow Jesus up to the cross. Amen.